All right, the Reds, it's a new show from the Anfield Rap Den, and this one is called One on One. It is an interview one-on-one with someone interesting, someone who's a Red, someone who's done something a little bit special. And for the very first one, we have got Asif Kapadia, who has indeed done something very special. And he's made a series of films, some that you may well have heard of. The Maradona film being one of the most recent ones, a brilliant film, well worth your time, by the way. He also did Senna, he also did Amy. He's worked on many, many more, and there'll be more to come from him too. We managed to nail him down, we managed to get some time with him, which was fantastic. And we're here in the Everyman Cinema in Liverpool to have a sit down with Asif. Okay, joined now by Asif. Thanks very much for taking the time, mate. And we are in Liverpool's Everyman Cinema. We've got to say thank you to them because they've allowed us to use this space this morning. So big thanks to them. And I'm not just saying it, it is a lovely place to come and watch films. Asif, the reason you're here, or one of the reasons you're here, is the Reds were playing last night. We drew 1-1 with Napoli. And you are a Liverpool fan, and that's where I want to start. You know, we're the Anfield Rap. We talk about Liverpool as much as we talk about anything else. So how did you become a Liverpool fan?
So, I was glad to be here for a start. Yeah, nice to be chatting to you. I'm a Liverpool fan from very, very young. I'm a Londoner, as you can hear. I'm a North Londoner. My family were at Arsenal. But I have always, from the age of like 3 or 4, been a Liverpool fan. So Kenny Dalglish was like my first favourite player. My best friend was this Turkish boy. We both had our little tricycles on our street in Hackney, and we were both Liverpool fans. I kind of copied him, and you stick with him. You don't change. So my first game was at Highbury with the Arsenal fans with my big brother. Arsenal won, but I was still supporting Liverpool. You know, it was one of those things where it was very clear that I couldn't enjoy anyone else winning, and that I've kind of been with them ever since. And then used to go to games in London as often as I can. And in more recent years, I've been able to come up to Anfield. So I had my first experience at the COP last night.
And how was it?
It was fantastic. It was great. You know, it was nice. It was like back in the day. You know, everyone standing up, packed, great songs. Shame about the ref. Shame about the result, because we don't do it the easy way. It's going to go down to the last game again.
That is a Liverpool thing.
That's what we do. Yeah, there's never simple. There's never like, oh, it's a dead rubber. It doesn't happen, does it?
In terms of then being in London, being a Liverpool fan, we, you know, buying the Liverpool kit, wearing the Liverpool kit, were people like, I just bought Liverpool.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm a North Londoner, so particularly in recent years, most of my friends are Arsenal and Spurs fans, and there's a lot of Chelsea fans as well, I guess. It's always been a tricky one, going to the pub to watch football back in the day, and being one of the kind of small group. Wherever you are in the world, there will always be a group of Liverpool fans. So even the same in London, it's like, it is what it is. I think it's all pretty friendly stuff.
And you went to Madrid, didn't you? You saw us win the European Cup there. Yeah. That's obviously going to be a standout. But what are the other standout moments for you being a Red all these years?
I've been quite lucky the last few years. I was at the Barcelona game. We won 4-0. That was amazing.
Yeah.
That's kind of as an experience, that was amazing. I was at the Dortmund game. So watching that come back, the kind of 3 goals in the last half an hour. Man City game, mainly Champions League, because of work and things, I can get up for a Champions League game. So I've been to the last couple of European Cup finals. I went to the UEFA Cup final in Basel, that was awful. And Roma, I was here, Man City, I was here. So quite a few amazing games. But I think the Barcelona one and the Dortmund ones are, in terms of intensity and loudness and just passion and you know, knowing that the crowd and this stadium, there's nothing like it. I do go to other stadiums as often as I can. I go to any games anywhere. And even though people talk about other atmospheres, nothing compares. Argentina's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've ever been to any games there, but they're pretty incredible. And the singing and atmospheres, but they don't have any away fans. So there's a whole thing there because it's so dangerous and violent there. It is just home supporters. So you have a whole stadium full just to the home fans. So I've been to River Match. I still need to do Boca. That's the one. So I'm hoping to do a Classico next time I'm over there.
Player-wise, you've already dropped Kenny's name in, which is an obvious one, and he's a hero of mine as well, and a lot of Reds I imagine. But what other players as well, sort of through your time as a Red, have stood out, being a hero for you, being special for you?
Oh God, it's really interesting because when you talk about football, I don't talk like this about films or actors or anything else, but they're like people you kind of fall in love with. You know, I've had moments like Torres. I was in love with Torres. You know, there are people like that. You just like Alonso.
Yeah,
Alonso was a guy for me just because of the way he played and his intelligence. And I think that's what it is. It's having players like that are brilliant and skillful, but just have a brain. And I think we went through a period of not having particularly intelligent players. yeah, say, we got people who tried, but they didn't think. So Alonso, Torres, I mean, that kind of Rafa time. Gerrard obviously has been a hero so many times and means so much. And in recent years, you know, I've never really loved the goalkeeper like I love Alisson Becker, but he is so cool and so brilliant. And then when
like
he's
a
in
film
goal,
star. He's like a film star.
Yeah, you know, he can play music, he can do everything, he looks great, but also the calming influence he is. So in the Champions League final, you know, even though Tottenham did come back at the end, he had a lot of shots, it didn't feel too dramatic. It felt like we're okay. He's there. He's going to sort it out. And he made things look easy. He didn't spill the ball right in front of the goal every time. So they're the ones that come to mind over recent. Trent is amazing, you know, as a young player. So many. But I would say Alonso, Gerrard and Torres were a particular fondness for those guys.
Looking at your films and looking at what you're well known for, obviously the Maradona film, the Senna film, the Amy film. There's a lot of media out there, and I don't know if they've created the link or it is actually a link. But there's a thing there that you like a rebel, you like the story of a rebel. If you were to do a Liverpool player who is maybe a bit of a rebel, you know, who would be a good story in your style? Do you think a Liverpool player?
That's a tough one. Do you know, I'm going to answer this in a different way. I think I find it interesting making films about people I don't know too much about, or where I'm slightly impartial and I go in there and I learn. I'm wary about doing anything too close to home because you lose that sort of sense of impartiality. But that's a really interesting question, a rebel. I don't know, who comes to mind for you? Who would you call a big rebel?
Well, when I was thinking about this morning on my way in, I thought, who would be a good film by you about, you know, someone who's played for Liverpool? And it's got to be Luis Suarez, isn't it?
I mean, he's the nearest to Diego Maradona that I can think of as someone who you love or you hate.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been on both sides of it because I was there when we were playing Barca, and what he was doing, what he does. When he's on your side, you love him. And in terms of his skill, how brilliant he was for us, but also he divides people. Yeah. You know, you're right. Actually, he's the most interesting. You know, he seems like such a sweet guy off the pitch, but he's a nasty piece of work on it. But when he's your nasty piece of work, God, it's intense, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess he is that. You're right. He's the only one that comes to mind because he is so Latin. He is the nearest to Diego Maradona in terms of what he's willing to do for his national team and for his club teams to win. He's on another level. I think you're right, that's the one.
And a Gerrard one has already been done. John Barnes, not a rebel, but I think that would be a brilliant story to tell just because of, you know, everything he went through and where he is now and what he means to Liverpool. In terms of your actual filmmaking then and moving into particularly the Maradona one, I want to try and focus on that because we are football and people who are watching will be football fans. How did that come about? How did the idea of you telling the story of Maradona come about?
Came about really via a couple of producers, one of whom who contacted me a long time ago, just after I'd made Senna. He'd seen it and liked it, a guy called Paul, and he said there was this kind of footage that he was aware of, which was private footage of Diego Maradona, which was somewhere in Italy. He thought he had access to it. And the funny thing is, having just made this film about a amazing Brazilian sportsman, I just thought, I'm not ready to go straight into the Argentinian sportsman. So I actually said, I don't think the timing's right. So I said, no, that was in 2012, around the time of the London Olympics. And I went off and I made Amy, and I did a few other things, made a film, I did some other stuff. And then the project came back, and then it felt like, okay, maybe this is the time. If I'm going to do it after Senna and Amy, and it's like the third film, the fact that Maradona's alive, and I can meet him and interview him, and there is this material, and he's old, and Senna and Amy died young, and it was this idea of making a film about what happens when you get older. If you're brilliant and a genius and quite difficult and tricky and challenging, and I do like the challenge. I do like the idea of making a film about someone who's not, I knew going in it wasn't going to be simple. I don't speak Spanish, I don't speak Italian, and I didn't know what state he was going to be in. Yeah. Would he remember anything? Would he be really difficult? Would he get angry? Would he, you know, is it going to be dangerous? Who knows? So that fear is actually what makes me interested in doing something. And in the end, I did meet him many times. Went to Dubai when he was living there. He was coaching out there. Went to his home. I played football with Diego.
Amazing.
In my mind, you know, I passed the ball to Diego Maradona and he's passed it back and I didn't break anything. And it was mad. So I've seen him on good days, I've seen him on bad days. In the film, when you hear his voice, that's from the interviews we did. And I asked him about some of the difficult stuff in his life and also some of the good stuff. And so it was a pretty amazing experience. And so as a football fan, I don't think there's anyone that kind of compares to the scale of what Diego Maradona's achieved and done. And again, that kind of love-hate relationship. I think characters who divide you are much more interesting for films than people are universally loved.
Yeah. And he's so iconic, isn't he? And especially for, you know, you're not that different in age to me, so I'll say our age, our era, you know, the 1986 World Cup and all the rest of it. Was there a part of you where, did you ever feel, I'm making a film about an absolute football icon, I've got to get it right? Do you know what I mean? Was there a huge pressure on you?
You're right, there is a pressure, because in this case, going in it, I knew there were going to be lots of people here who don't like him and who are not going to change your mind, okay? So that you're going in and knowing there's going to be a challenge. You're not necessarily going to convert people. Then you've got what he means to Argentinians. And it's like, for an English guy and a crew from the UK making a film about an Argentinian hero, but also, as we sort of research the story, what he means to Neapolitans.
Yeah.
And these are like, he's a big deal. He's a god in Argentina and in Naples. And then you've got a Brit making a film. And they're quite difficult communities to get into. So having a really good team of people who did speak the language, who were able to get in there, you have to have a lot of coffee, you sit down with people, you chat to them, you become friendly, and then they open up to you. It was tough, but that was really part of the challenge. And then I guess the idea of success will be whether or not you can convert some people here. And people who just love football hopefully will learn something about Maradona. A lot of people think they know everything already. Yeah. It's all out there, it's all on YouTube, and our job when we make these films is to say there's a lot you don't know. Same with Senna, same with Amy. You think you know the story, we're going to tell you there's a lot more to it, to this character. But so far the reaction in Argentina has been amazing. It's very emotional for them. And in Naples, they love it. Even though it's tough at times, the film, everyone says it's honest. And it reveals something that they didn't quite understand. They didn't quite connect the dots before. That's the aim.
I've read that, you know, you never actually, up to a point anyway, it might have changed since these things were done. You hadn't got any actual end feedback off him. Have you got any now?
No, that's so typical Diego Maradona, isn't it? You make a film about him, and then he's like, I'm not going to watch it. Right, now, I think he probably has seen it now, because it's now streaming in Latin America, okay? So it's on his TV, and I know him. I know he stays up all day and all night watching football, and I know he knows everything about himself. So he probably has seen it, but kind of typically with him, he'll watch it and then not say anything. Whereas before it came out, he was saying quite a few things. So he and his team are fully aware of it, but that's just typically him. What people think is when you make a film about someone who's going to be alive, it's going to be more difficult because, you know, they're going to want to say what's in the film or what isn't in the film. Funny thing is with him, it was the opposite. You know, we tried to show it to him many times before we completed it. And he was just too busy travelling the world, doing what he does, doing deals, doing business, coaching, being at the World Cup. They did say, come over to Moscow and show it to us during the World Cup. And I was like, I just got a feeling it's not going to be a good time. And as we saw him during the World Cup, that was not the time to show him this film. So at some point, I was in Argentina a few weeks back, maybe a month or so ago, and we were in the same city. And I think what you learn when you make these films is that often we put it all the weight on him. But essentially, it's the team around him who make the decisions, who he sees and who he doesn't see. And maybe for the team, it's not in their interest for us to meet and to show the film because they've got other deals in mind, let's just say.
So he is intense, he is fiery, he's got almost this, you know, double character, which I've heard you talk about before. You know, you've got the Diego and you've got the Maradona and you've got the superstar and you've got the actual human being. Yeah. When you did get some time with him, how did you find him, and was there any periods there where, you know, that side of his character come out where you thought, oh, shit?
Like I said, the cliche with Maradona is that and if you've watched any documentaries about him, half the documentaries about Diego Maradona are failed attempts to interview Diego Maradona, right? You know, Gary Lineker's made one like that. A lot of people have done that where you go there and you wait and you go there and you wait. And I've had that experience where we waited for a week in Dubai with a full crew, sound, translators, cameras, everything, and we never got to see him, right? And I kind of had 5 minutes with him, and then we went off to the airport, and that was it. I was like, okay, this is not going to work. Having made 2 films about people who I never met, Senna and Amy, I didn't meet, they both died before I made the films, I'm like, I can make the film without him. I can make a good film without him. If he doesn't want to be a part of it, that's fine. But actually, his people did get in touch. We went back, and the next time I took minimal crew, just myself and a kind of translator, Lena. And in this case, because we had a smaller crew, he had no entourage. And then we went in there, and he was in a better frame of mind. He was tired. I sound recorded it myself. We sat on his sofa, had a chat. He was watching Boca on TV while I was interviewing him. So it's not like he was going to give us that much attention. But bit by bit, my job is to kind of get him engaged and for him to go, actually, you're asking me things that no one's really asked before. And we're going into more detail than most interviews. So then I was like, can I come back tomorrow? And he said, yeah, come back tomorrow. The next day, the TV was off. And we sat there, we had a coffee, and we chatted again. And then I've done that about 5 or 6 times. And then we had some really good interviews, really friendly ones. And his team were like, you know what, he might ask you out for dinner tonight. He really enjoyed your chat. Sometimes time would pass, and I'd think, he has no idea who I am. He's forgotten. Does he know we're making a film? You know, I'd have moments like that where we'd be chatting, and in the middle of the conversation, we'd be talking about something, and he'd bring up Ayrton Senna and say how much he loved Ayrton Senna. And I'd go, does he know that I made the film? Is he messing with me, or has he forgotten? You know, you're never sure. Yeah. Sound recordist that I worked with on that shoot is from Naples. I brought along a Neapolitan fan because I thought they can chat and it will calm him down and make him happy. So they were talking about, he was there in the stands when Diego was playing. He was a season ticket holder, right? So they were chatting away, and Luca, the sound recorder, said, you do know he made the film Senna? And he goes, really? Oh my God, I love that film. So I'm like, oh my God, we've talked about this before. So we had moments like that where he just forgot. Now, I guess he's been interviewed a lot over the years. So you had good days where we were chatting, bad days where he didn't want to meet, and we had days where he forgot who I was. That kind of sums up. And we had one interview where I thought, okay, I've got to dig into the heavy stuff. Yeah. I've got to ask about, the drugs. I've got to ask about the kids that he's had that he didn't recognize. I've got to ask about the links to kind of gangsters and stuff like that. And I saved it up to the penultimate interview. And at one point, when we were doing the interviews, I ask a question in English. Someone translates it. He answers in Spanish. In my ear, I'm having live translation. So while he's talking to me, looking at me, I've got a phone on the table ringing Buenos Aires. And Laura is in Buenos Aires calling me back on another phone to give me live translation via WhatsApp, because I couldn't bring everyone to Dubai. It's very expensive. And he speaks a very particular kind of Argentinian Spanish. He speaks Diego language, really. And so I'm sitting there nodding and listening, not understanding what he's saying. About 15 seconds slower, the translation comes through where he looks at me and says, you've got a real nerve. Who do you think you are asking me these questions to my face? Who do you think you are? And he wasn't happy. And I'm nodding and smiling, going, yeah. And then eventually the translation, I'm like, oh, shit. Because I was asking about his kid, Diego Jr. Yeah. And it was a very long pause, and it got quite cold in there. And then eventually he says, but for that I respect you, because most people would never have the nerve to ask me these questions to my face. They ask them to my back. So I went, okay, but when he wants to be in a good mood, you're very happy. When he's smiling and he's cheerful, but when he's not in a good mood, you know it, and he's not, So there was a particular moment when it did turn a bit frosty. And the honest truth is, I never got in the room with him again. That was the last interview. That interview was the one where he said, right, I've had enough.
And he's so interesting, and the story is so intriguing, and the film's fantastic, and I would recommend everyone goes to see it if you haven't already. But you use that archive footage, and like you said before, it's stuff we've never seen before. It's fantastic. It's captivating. It must have been so difficult to edit. I mean, how did you get it down to where you got it down to? I read that you had it at like 5 hours at one point.
500, yeah. So we saw thousands of hours of material. I have a brilliant editor, Chris King, who was one of the editors on Senna. He cut Amy. He's a fantastic editor, so he cuts. I have a team of researchers who are brilliant, whose job is to find material. And generally, the interesting stuff was not necessarily in English. So they speak Spanish and they speak Italian. They're finding material from Argentina that Argentinians have never seen, materials coming from Italy that Italians have never seen, and then we're putting it all together to tell a story. And so really, the crew are key. And then my job is to kind of react to what we see, to find a story, and to think ahead. So the way we work is we're doing interviews, audio interviews only. I don't take a camera normally. Audio interviews, we're looking at archive, we're kind of doing research and editing all at the same time. And this film was about 3 years. 3 years in the making. And then once you've got a cut, then you've got to try and license the footage, and that's the expensive bit. You've got to get the material, and you then have to cut a deal and charm people, and for them to want to be a part of what you're trying to do, which is all of it is tricky, but that's a particularly tricky bit. So yeah, the first cut was probably 4 hours, and then became 3 hours, and then we had to make a decision at about 3 hours because with Senna and Amy, we pretty much tried to tell their whole story. Diego's life is so long and there's so many events, it became very difficult to do everything. So we had to make a choice of, do we try and do everything and just squeeze it up and it becomes a bit of a YouTube video, kind of highlights reel, which is already out there? Or do we focus on what we think is the big story, which most people don't know? Because we're talking pre-Football Italia. That's the key thing. When Gaza goes there in '92, that's when James Richardson and Football Italia starts. By then, Diego had left. And so his period is just before, it's before the internet, it's before podcasts, it's before anything like this, and it's before it was on TV. So nobody really saw what was going on in Italy and understood how he became and where he became the best player in the world, but also where all of his personal issues really started. So we ended up choosing to focus on that, and that's how we brought it down to a couple of hours.
In terms of the actual football that you see as well, I mean, I know with me and my mates, when we talk about football and film, it's largely been shite, I think it's fair to say.
It's crap.
You know, and we talk about like
players
escape to
can't act,
to victory
and
or whatever.
actors can't play.
Yeah,
and also you can't clear the kind of logos. So you see them all looking in, like wearing bad kits that have no sponsorship, or, you know, the whole thing looks fake. It's true. It always does in movies.
There's footage in your film of Maradona which is on him. And it's not sort of, it's following him and not the match, and that's really fantastic
what we changed.
To watch.
Yeah, and also so the key thing is, this is what made the film possible, is that when Diego was young, while he was still playing at Boca, he had an agent called Jorge Sister-Spieler, who's in the film. He's got a big afro, who's was a really good guy for Diego. And he is the guy who sees 17, 18-year-old Diego Maradona. He does the deal to get him to Boca. So he gets his family the first home where they have a door key, because they're living in a shanty town, in a favela. So they get their first door key and a front door and bedrooms. He's the guy responsible for getting Diego out of the shanty town. He does the deal with Boca. He's there for a year. Boca go on a world tour to make as much money as possible. So they take Diego Maradona all over the world playing exhibition matches. He does the biggest deal ever to get him to Barca, and the biggest deal again to get him to Napoli. So Jorge is a big character in his life. And he's the guy who says, you're such a star, I want to break America with you. Excuse me. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to get 2 cameramen to follow you everywhere you go, on the pitch, off the pitch, and we're going to make a feature film. So this is in 1981. He starts filming him, and they follow him all the way through Boca, all the way through Barca. That's why we have footage of his operation and all of this material in Barcelona and through Naples. So that footage of him on the pitch, where the camera's just looking at him, is because it's his own personal cameraman. In those days, you know, the kind of rights to football was very different. It's kind of open season. If you're Diego Maradona and you turn up with your own camera crew, no one said no. So his cameraman would stand on the side of the pitch filming just him. And Italian football at the time was one big wide shot from the top of the stand. You know, so if you look at that footage, you can't really make a film with that, because you're just looking at a bunch of dots, aren't you? And so that's why we thought the film was doable, is we had these close-ups and you could see what he's doing with the ball. And it's not really about all the other players. It's just trying to understand the tackles he had, the kind of, you know, the kind of pitches that we had in those days, how they used to cut up. You know, we wouldn't even get a yellow card if you tried to break his ankle. You know, that was normal.
Yeah, some of the tackles
and he would skip over it and he'd be crawling on the floor and getting up in order to carry on playing. No one would do that now. So that's what I wanted to show, was what football used to be like back in the day. And therefore, I think how much more brilliant he was, because he was able to do it in that level of football with no protection, against essentially all of the best players in the world were playing in Italy. You know, that's different as well. It's not like now where they're sort of shared out amongst the mega rich teams in each league. At that point, everyone who's anyone played in Italy, and he went to the club that's never won anything, wins the Scudetto twice, and they've never won it again since. So that just shows how amazing he was to do it at that time in that league with the kind of level of defending that they had in Italy.
When you saw...
Did you see the league table? There's a league table in the film which shows when he was a top scorer.
Yeah.
And I think it was 13 goals. That was a lot of goals.
Yeah.
Something like that. In Italy, that was how hard it was. You know, the idea of scoring 40, 50 goals every season. In those days, if you scored 20, that was a big deal.
It's like when Ian Rush goes over there, he finds it difficult.
What
Still
did he get,
scores
12
goals.
or 9 or
Like
something?
that.
And he was considered a failure, but he
He's
probably
getting
got more than...
for Liverpool.
Yeah, he got more than Hullet, and he got more than, you know, all these other Van Basten and people like that year.
When you're immersed in a project like this, and you've got these thousands of hours of footage, and you've got your staff, and you're trying to pursue something about an icon, how hard is it to think about anything else, about life, about what's next, about anything really? Do you live what you're doing?
Yeah, I think you have to get quite obsessed when you're doing these films. I mean, they do take a long time, they take years, but you have to dig deep, and you have to, you know, you get to a point where you start dreaming about the characters and dreaming about people and getting quite obsessive. I've got to get this particular interview, or this person needs to talk to me because they may have that tape with all that amazing footage that will answer all our problems. And of course, once you charm them and you meet them and you talk to them and you get the tape and you bring it back and it's no good, or you think it's no good, and then eventually there may be something in there that works. So a lot of it is like detective work. A lot of it is, you know, you're basically being a journalist as well as an artist, as well as a filmmaker, as well as a therapist. You know, there's all these different issues, because often if you're dealing with tricky people, in the case of Senna and Amy, someone had died, right? They've got family members that died, so there's a lot of guilt and responsibility or culpability. And then with Maradona, he's left a lot of mess behind him. There's a lot of residue. There's a lot of people that are afraid of him. There's a lot of people that were once in the inner circle, and for 30 years he's ignored them. And they would desperately want to be back in his inner circle, so they don't want to upset him. So all of that you have to manage. And that's the difference between doing fiction, drama, and doing docs. You're dealing with real people and real issues and real emotions in a way. And yeah, you have to carry all of that weight and try and deliver, you know, for the people who paid for the film. So it's part of the challenge, but it's also, it's a great job. You know, you can't complain. It's something that I love doing, so it doesn't ever feel like work.
Is that your niche now? Is that what you want to do? Because you worked on more traditional films before you went into the more documentary type style. But now that you've done those and done them so successfully, you're like, okay, this is me now.
No, I would say actually, I'm a director, so I make lots of stuff. I make films. I've made TV. I did a TV show, Mindhunter, while I was doing Maradona. Actually, the first year when it was being researched, a lot of the time I was away in Pittsburgh shooting for David Fincher on this Netflix show. So I always do both. It just happens to be that docs are more well known.
Yeah.
Senna and Amy became really much more successful around the world. But before I made Senna, I was doing feature films, and I will probably go back and do them until I find the right subject. You know, it can get quite repetitive. And the thing about the way that I've made these documentaries is that they are mainly archive based, pretty much, okay? But my background and what I love about filmmaking is going off with a camera and going up a mountain and going into a location and shooting. So I miss that, actually. So the thing is just to kind of always have some balance. And then you feel fresh when you go back to it.
Football-wise and football stories-wise, that's what we're in the business of as well, to an extent. What do you make of where that's gone? Because obviously now we've got the stuff that we see on Amazon, the stuff that we see on Netflix. All of a sudden it's quite big business producing that kind of story. Behind the scenes is obviously a Tottenham one ongoing now, and they've got Mourinho in, which you imagine is good for the story. What have you made of all that stuff? What stuff have you liked?
It's a good point. I mean, I do like all that kind of inside Anfield stuff. I like the footage when there's just no commentary and you're just there, and I think they do that really well. Brilliant. I really like that. I find the more kind of the shows that have been done by Netflix or Amazon that I've seen are definitely created, and they're slightly more PR and, you know, a little bit more propaganda going on. But that's what it is. I still find it hard to give a toss about any other team, so I'm not really that bothered. I don't have a lot of time to watch a whole series about someone that I don't really like. So I only watch the Man City one, waiting for us to beat them. You know, that's the only reason to watch it was to wait for us to knock them out. And then I'm like, all right, I'm done. Our job is done. And then move on. I don't believe that that's really the kind of behind the scenes meeting. I feel like that's being done for the camera. The cameras leave and then they do the real meeting. Yeah. That's my feeling. Being in the business as well, you kind of see the construction, you know. I think everyone talks. Is it the Sunderland one that everyone loves?
Yeah.
But again, I haven't caught that one yet. So there's I struggle with paying any interest in anything about Man U or I don't know who. I'm like, life's too short.
Fair.
You know? What have you seen that you like?
I quite like the Leeds one. Right. The Leeds one, I think, was obviously all geared up to...
With no Bielsa, is that right? Is he not in it until the very ending, I heard?
He's in it, like the following him, but he's not speaking, he's not doing any interviews.
Right.
He does a little bit at the end, yeah. But I found that quite interesting. Like, they show you a bit on transfer deadline day, which doesn't feel staged.
Right.
They nearly do. The lad who ends up at United, what's he called, James, they nearly do him, and it falls to you last minute, and there's like people kicking walls and slamming doors, and he's just got to sort of go, all right, bye, and leave, and it's a bit like, that's strange, isn't it? He nearly joined that club. So that bit I quite enjoyed. There was one as well, sort of I think it was following Chris Wilder on transfer deadline day, and it was very, him on the phone and stuff like that. No sort of commentary over it, just you were literally seeing him. And I think with him, what you see is what you get. He's a honest Yorkshireman and all that kind of stuff. So I enjoyed that.
It's definitely going to become more and more popular because it's all about content, isn't it? It's all about giving people what they want and having every team will have someone who supports it and who will watch. And what's happened really since Senna, I think Senna was a bit of a turning point within like a lot of the industry because many people have had footage in the cupboard and they're just tapes taking up space and they thought, well, they've chucked them out at times. Yeah. In Argentina, a lot of our footage came out of a skip. Right, because the TV companies have no money there to digitize their tapes. So they just throw them out because they're like, we can't keep this stuff. And then people will go by, look out at the TV companies, grab all the tapes, take a moment and say, I'm a collector. Because if there's one shot of Diego Maradona in there, that's going to be worth some money. Yeah. And the economy's in a bad way. So what happened post-Senna was that suddenly people said, this is worth something. Even Formula One didn't really understand what they had. And then suddenly everyone's going to start doing Formula One shows and you realise there is a fan base. And the same thing's happening with, now you just film everything, just in case one day you can make something out of it. So that's the future. I come from an old school film background where come from a background where I will spend a long time to make something shorter, so that you can watch it in a couple of hours, hopefully. And if you're a fan, you're going to learn something. And if you're not a fan of motor racing, Amy Winehouse, or even Diego Maradona, you might still be able to watch it. I struggle with watching 10 hours on a subject or a team or a character that I'm not that arsed about. I'm like, there's other stuff that I might be doing. Like looking at what's going on with Liverpool on Twitter or something, basically.
Well, you're following the Anfield app. We've got 3 aspiring filmmakers behind the cameras here. They're very excited.
They are filmmakers.
Well, they are filmmakers.
They're doing
literally making one now, but they're all very excited that you're here. If you could give them some tips, and indeed the people watching who want to get into film, who this is their area that they're desperate to get into, what would be your tips for someone starting out?
So I started out working on crews. My way into the business was working on films. I was a runner to start with. I've been a sound recordist. I've been a camera assistant. I've been an AD, an assistant director, an assistant editor. I've done every role. And then bit by bit, I started making my own films. I've worked in TV where, there's a lot of kind of quick turnaround stuff. You have to know all the jobs, you have to know everything. But then in the end, I wanted to make movies. And for me, I did go to film school. I did go to university to study, to learn about the history of cinema and filmmaking. But also the main thing was to be making short films. Be making films about whatever it is that you're really interested in and passionate about. And it doesn't matter if you're different. In fact, that's a good thing if the way you think and what you're interested in is different to what everyone else is doing. That's kind of why you're a director. Because the job of the director is when everyone thinks, oh, that's a really good shot, and then someone else, the director's going, no, I think that's it. That's what makes you different, because you've got to have a vision that makes you slightly different to everyone else, and then people will follow you, hopefully. So I would say just keep making your own films as well as working for other people is the way in. And just, if you enjoy what you do, it's not a job, and you get lucky enough, you get to travel, you meet people, and eventually what happened with me was my own films, my short films, became more successful than working for other people. I had to work for other people to earn some money, pay the bills, but I wanted to do my own work. And it's just like, it was always about finding that balance. And eventually my own films started to pay the bills, and then I could concentrate on that. I do commercials, I make short films, I do TV, I do docs, I do feature films. You have to do a bit of everything. You have to do a bit of everything to survive. until you get to the stage where you're kind of hopefully able to, people come to you one day, hopefully.
Brilliant. Well, I know you're a busy man. And
Let me give you one last story.
Go on then. Yeah, of course.
One last one, just to tie it up, okay? So I'm going to go back to Diego, okay? I'm meeting him. I'm in Dubai, and this is the interview, the second interview where I'm talking to him, and he's watching Boca on TV, and I'm thinking this is a disaster. You know, he's not interested, he's not engaged at all. He's sitting in the middle, Lena's sitting on one side, she's translating, and I'm sat on the other side on the sofa. And every time he did talk to us, he'd sort of, the microphone's here on the table, because I don't even have a sound recordist. Yeah. So he's talking off mic. He keeps turning one way or another, he's watching TV, he's leaning back, he's kind of, he might even be about to fall asleep, okay? This is really like, this is a disaster. This could be the only interview I get with Diego Maradona. It's not working. Because I thought the only way I can make this work is if I sit next to the microphone, then he'll talk to me and talk into the mic, and so whatever I'm getting, at least it'll be usable. Hopefully there'll be something there. And so I had to sit like next to the mic, which was basically like down here, right, by the coffee table. So he's watching TV over my shoulder, and I'm sat essentially on the floor, so that when he talks to me, at least he's on mic. And I'm going, okay, this is a bit better. But as I'm sitting there, I'm realizing I am sitting at the feet of Diego Maradona. And he always wears shorts. His thighs are like this, right? He's so like, he's not obese now, he's not fat, he's just tough. I'm looking at his legs and go, my God, look at those legs. It's Diego Maradona's legs. Look at those thighs. So I'm now no longer paying any attention to what he's saying, and I'm just looking at his legs. Oh, that's Diego Maradona's legs. And I look down and go, oh, that's Diego Maradona's foot. That's Diego Maradona's left foot. And it's like a matter of 5 inches away from my hand. And I'm like, I wonder if he'd mind if I touched it. I wonder if he'd mind. I mean, it wouldn't be a problem if I just reached out and touched Diego Maradona's left foot, would it? Would he mind? So I'm starting thinking, I've really got to do it. So we carried on, he's still talking, I'm interviewing him, I'm going, I've got to do it. I'm too close not to do it. It's got to be done. I've never had this urge before with anyone. I've met famous movie stars, I've met directors, actors, rock stars, artists, royalty. I've never given a shit about meeting like anyone, but with Diego, I had to touch his foot. So I did, for no reason at all. I just reached out at some point. Well, we were talking about. It in?
Did you say foot? I was
like, is this the one Goicoechea broke? And I grabbed his foot and his ankle, and he doesn't like being touched. And if you've seen the film, the whole thing is everyone's always grabbing him, so he doesn't like being touched. So he pushes me away because he doesn't like some random bloke who's sitting at his feet grabbing him. Pushes me away. I kind of fall back on the table and knock over the microphone, and it's all incredibly embarrassing, but I did touch his foot, and as a kind of fan of football, there was this urge with this guy who is genuinely charismatic. That's the thing about him. There's a lot of great players, there's a lot of great people out there, but he has whatever that thing is. When he walks in the room, you're aware of it, right? When he's happy, you're happy. When he's angry, you're scared. There is something about him, and that's all it was. I had this mad urge to touch the of Diego Maradona.
But that's great.
I haven't washed since.
But that's great though, because you said near the top when we started this out, you said something along the lines of that, football almost, we're a bit silly about it, aren't we? If you're a proper football fan, because my dad's not a football fan, for instance, and he just says 22 fellas kicking a ball around,
my wife
why are you bothered?
Yeah.
And I'm like, but it's not that. It's Kenny Dalglish, it's Steven Gerrard, it's John Barnes, and and when I met John Barnes, that's the only time because he was my absolute hero growing up. When I met him, I couldn't speak, and I was a grown man, and that's the fantastic thing about football, that it does that to us, isn't it?
I think there is it's a Latin American writer, I can't remember which one it is, but who said, of all the unimportant things in life, football is the most important. And I'm all right with that. Yeah, I'm all right with that as well. Well, let's hope we're both telling the story of Liverpool winning title number 19 at the end of the season. Asif, thanks very much. That's been a new thing from the Anfield app. As ever, give us feedback, follow Asif, watch his films. He's absolutely brilliant. Hope you've enjoyed it.